thinking in the entire ecosystem is still very data center oriented, that how do you have a data center and form a perimeter around it and try and secure it. Okay, we need to move away from that thinking. So first of all, as DSCI, we're very happy to get this program to you. It's a Palo Alto program, and I'm Dr. Sriram Birudavolu. I head the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at Hyderabad. We do a lot of work, including incubating 45 cybersecurity startups. You're welcome to really look at all the things that we do. So we do a lot in cloud also. In fact, we work with organizations like Control.s and many other things. So coming to this topic, it is extremely important that we bring together many concepts like zero trust architecture, firewall as a service, right? Web gateways, secure web gateways, okay? And what you call the entire cloud paradigm itself, which is there. This is only going to explode because you'll have more and more paradigms and systems joining in, like IoT, 5G, so many of them. So with that in mind, you essentially need to change the way we are doing things. It cannot simply be data center and people connecting to that, backhauling through the WAN, SD-WAN, and all of those things. So how do we go about doing this so that you get the best experience? And today's workforce is very distributed. They do BYOD, they do work from anywhere, and so on. They do mobile and all these things. So in face of all of these things, what is the best way forward? That is what we have Palo Alto here for, and we have the expert group, Tariq Ansari, Senior Manager Systems Engineering, Ashish Chalke, who is the subject matter expert, SASE Solutions Architect, and Sai Kumar M, who is the SASE Sales Specialist. Over to them. You can all come on the stage once too. Can you please, three of you come on the stage, please? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you also, Ashish. Yeah. All right. So they'll enlighten you on this topic, which is of extremely high importance in today's world. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So namaste and good afternoon once again. Thanks for joining the session. I see the number is little low, but I would have expected a little more audience, but I'm sure they will join. So if you look back, some of the major digital transformation either people have done or they are doing, or the enhancement which they are trying to implement in their organization across their applications, across their user, is basically to fulfill a very basic requirement. Okay, so what we have is a user trying to access an application. Okay, and at the end of the day, what organization wants, or as a security practitioner, what we are here for is to make sure that that access is safe and secure, right? This could be internal application, this could be business applications, and so on and so forth. This is a very basic, simple requirement. And if you look back all the digital or majority of the digital transformation project, which you may have conducted in past 10, 15 years, you would see all of those innovations, all of those transformations is around this simple requirement, just to fulfill this basic, simple requirement. Now, let me show you how this simple requirement turns into a complex problem. Okay. Now, if you look at the user perspective, our users currently are spread across different environments. Okay. They are working from offices, they are working from campus, they are working from branches, they are also mobile as well, and they are also working from home. So we have all those disparate environments where the employees or the users would like to work from. And at the same time, they would like to have the access to the same application. They don't want you to differentiate any media of connectivity which they are using. Irrespective of that, they want to access that application, whether it is an internal application or any SaaS applications or something like that, right? On the application side, we have seen a lot of transformation has happened in the past. For example, you would be running application in your data centers, could be virtualized or could be bare metal, right? Application or general internet browsing, or could be public cloud, or could be SaaS applications, right? So application has also spread across different environment. Now, when the user try to access these many different applications deployed at different locations, we are responsible to make sure that these access are safe, secure to conduct the business, right? And in order to solve that specific issue, which may have come in different point in time, we are forced to deploy different kind of security solutions to take care of those specific security use cases. For example, if it is physical data center, you may want to deploy a firewall, IPS, APT, proxy, these, that, and all those things, right? Similarly, when you're talking about work from home kind of an environment, again, you will deploy these kind of security control in a different form factor, maybe as a TNA provider or something like that, right? And if you move on to the SD-WAN solution or SASE solution, you will similarly deploy similar security control will be deployed, and then, from a different OEM manage differently. So in today's world, if you look back your organization, you would have similar architecture deployed just to achieve network security use case, just to achieve network security requirement. Now, of course, all these devices come from different OEMs, having different policy management, having different dashboards and consoles and so on and so forth and all those things, which leads to issues such as inefficient operations, right? Complex policy management, and then gap in compliance. Now, let me take an example of my favorite example again, Lockbit 2.0 ransomware, right? Now, if you want to secure your network, just the network security piece against the ransomware, Lockbit 2.0 ransomware, right? You would be touching threat prevention, you would be touching IPS, you would be touching URL filtering solutions, you will be touching antivirus solutions, and so on and so forth in your organization, right? So minimum 8 to 10 different kind of security solutions you have to touch, you have to manage, maintain, update, make sure that they are fully geared up to safeguard you against Lockbit 2.0. Now, it is not easy, right? We have seen this issue in the earlier presentation, and then it exists as well from a network security perspective. The approach, what we are bringing forward, and we would like to share with you, is that what if we can achieve all those use cases, okay, with a unified and cohesive platform, the network security platform. So, any user from anywhere can access any application with a consistent security policy, with a best-in-class performance, irrespective of the media which they are connecting. They will receive the same performance, they will receive the same security policies, okay, irrespective of the media they are connecting in, right? So this particular platform is something which we are going to deep dive in our workshop, and I'm sure Sai and Ashish will take you into that, but I would like to keep you all those challenges in mind while they will take you through this. Let me change the gear a little bit and talk about AI, right? So we talked about AI in the earlier session, and we know the prevalent danger, right? It brings in, right? So AI with adversaries, they are using it to increase the speed and impact in order to cyber threats, right? So here are some examples. They can build a ransomware as less than 15 minutes. They can compromise and exfiltrate data out from organization in less than 20 minutes, and then exploit any vulnerability in less than 60 minutes post their public disclosure, right? So all these enhancements are available to attackers as well. As we are using AI and cloud, this is again available to adversaries, and they're taking advantage to increase their speed and scale. So what we are doing as an OEM, right? What we are doing as an industry. Everybody has some roadmap to include AI in their product portfolio. So does Palo Alto Networks. Here we have taken a different approach. Instead of launching a generic AI, what we are launching is something called as precision AI. Now this precision AI is going to help us counter the adversaries which is using AI improvise our confidence in taking action, improvise our ability to take action much faster, automate the day-to-day task, so the organizations or the security analysts can focus on new threats and threat hunting in their organization rather than stuck up with day-to-day tasks. Now, precision AI is a combo of three things, as I mentioned earlier. One is the machine learning. So here we are using all the intelligence, all the knowledge which Palo Alto has learned over a period of 15 to 18 years of us being existed in this industry, right? So with that, what we are doing is we are creating machine learning model which we are infusing in all our product line to make sure that this is available to our customers. Using machine learning, the security product can take the decision much faster in terms of recognizing whether it is a bad traffic or whether it is a good traffic, So that's the machine learning. Then we have the deep learning, which help us in order to understand the context around that threat incident, which is happening across your network. Since we are talking about network security, if we see any IOCs, if we see any traffic going to let's say malicious URL or a bad domain, we can immediately understand the context, right? And then we provide that context to analysts so they can take the decision much faster and in a much accurate way. Last but not least, we are also coming up with generative AI, the way to interact with these tools, right, in a more natural and a human way. Rather than we understand machine language, we have make sure that machine understand human language, and we can use natural way of interacting with them and achieve our result in a much better, in a much simplest way, right? What we have done is we have powered all our security capabilities, which is available from Palo Alto Network when it comes to network security platform, which is called as advanced threat prevention, advanced wildfire, advanced URL, and advanced DNS, right? All these four key security features are now leveraging AI at the back end to make sure that they could able to deliver, they could able to protect you against any threats in real time, in near real time, right? Let me take an example. Let's say, for example, if you're talking about patient zero, right, which is always a problem. We as a security practitioner, we understand that once we as an industry learn about an attack, signature are created around that, and then once the signature is updated, we will be able to safeguard against those specific attacks, right? Now this has been going on, but always there was always a problem of patient zero. That what to do about patient zero, right? Now, typical approach, what we have seen is that when any 0 day comes in, any 0 day, right, irrespective, our inline security devices or solutions are not able to protect against 0 day because they don't have signatures, okay? Then what happens is, in some shape and form, that particular information is passed on to something called as offline security tools. It could be sandboxing, it could be, something like that, machine learning, for example. And then at the back end, the OEM or that particular technology vendor will create the signature and then will pass it on back to the infrastructure or to that particular specific tool. So now the next time when this attack happens, they will be able to protect that. Now we are going to change that game forever. What we are talking about is, we are talking about making sure that we have enough information in real time, analyze the traffic in real time, use all our learning which we had for last 15 years, use that learning and then take a call whether it is a good traffic or it is a bad traffic to protect against 0 day patient zero scenario in our environment. With precision AI, we will continue to learn your environment, right? Of course, some of the things which will come out of the box to make sure that we will able to safeguard against your environment. But of course, we understand that each environment is unique than others, right? So this technology will able to learn your environment better. What time your users logs in? What time user logged out? What is the general traffic? Which domain you access most? Stuff like that and all those things, right? And in case of any security incident, what is the steps your team takes to remediate from? The technology will learn all those steps along with you at the same time. So next time when that attack happens, the technology, the precision AI will able to take those steps without you. So you can focus on something new, right? So that's our goal. And the reason of that confidence is these numbers, right? We are actually blocking about 11.3 billion attacks in line on a day-to-day basis across the globe, across our install base, which our customers are using, right? So we are learning from each attacks which we are blocking. We are talking about 2.3 million new and unique attacks identified daily by our solutions, network security, cloud security, and SecOps, right? And at the same time, we are analyzing 4.6 billion events on a daily basis. So we are learning, we are training our precision AI based on all these learning on a daily basis. This is some of the very large numbers and our real data sets which you will not see anywhere across, right? In order for the AI to work properly, you need the right data. You need the better data. You need, good data as well as the bad data. This is what we have to offer as the largest cybersecurity vendor. So with that, let me pass it on to Sain.
Thanks, Tariq. So in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to briefly cover what is our SASE platform, what are the kind of innovations that we are doing in this platform, and how we are being relevant. As Tariq rightly said, any user from anywhere accessing any applications. How are you going to completely secure this entire life cycle? So the rest of the presentation from my side and from Ashish's side, he is going to cover this aspect. Right? I'm going to start with the belief that everybody understands what SASE is, and Dr. Sriram also gave a brief, brief introduction of why SASE services are becoming extremely relevant and extremely important in the industry, and I'll be talking more about that. Right? So if I had to give you some idea about what makes up our SASE architecture or our SASE platform, it is typically made up of these three pillars. The first pillar is about zero trust security. The second pillar is about how we are able to provide an exceptional network. And the third most important topic here is that how are we going to power up your operations, which is completely AI driven. Right? If I had to talk about the first pillar, it's all about how are we using the zero trust network access principles to the SASE platform, right? And if I have to give you a brief description of what we do as a part of this zero trust network access portfolio, it's all about providing least privilege access. When I say least privilege access, it's all about providing access to a user or to a workload only for the services that they are entitled for. The second most important thing is continuous trust inspection. What this essentially means is that throughout the entire life cycle of the communication, we are going to ensure that the devices that are trying to access the network are completely trusted as phase one. And as phase two, we are also going to periodically challenge the endpoint or the device so that anything that accesses the network is always legitimate and nothing spurious enters the environment. And the third important part is continuous security inspection. This is the secret sauce of our solution, and Tariq also spoke about this in brief, that irrespective of what you are trying to access, it could be a private application, it could be a public application, and so on and so forth. The entire communication, when the data hits the wire, till the time it is going to reach the destination, we are going to completely inspect this entire communication, and we are going to ensure that anything that traverses through the wire is always clean, and there is nothing spurious or nothing illegal that traverses the environment. Right? So how does this actually look? So if you see here, we are going to be exactly in between the user and the applications. right? And since we are exactly in between the user and the applications, we have got full visibility of who is trying to access the environment, which device the request is coming from, and more importantly, with our rich dictionary of application signatures, we can also be in a position to identify and trust a application per se, right? And as I said, what we essentially do as a part of our continuous trust verification is that we don't just provide access one time and completely forget about the connection. We are going to continuously challenge the user, continuously challenge the device, and also continuously challenge the application, so that from an access perspective, everything is clean, right? Then comes the most important part that I spoke about, which is called the continuous security inspection. This has been the biggest USP of Palo Alto Networks, and this has got a pedigree of around 16 years of research and development, right? All the inputs that Tariq gave about precision AI, about advanced threat prevention, advanced DNS security, day zero prevention, and so on and so forth, is also going to be applicable to our SASE platform, and it is going to be a part of the complete life cycle of the communication. And more importantly, while most of the solutions are going to harp upon protecting data in motion, we go one step further, and in addition to protecting data in motion, we also protect data at rest, right? And one more thing, which is again a secret sauce or a unique selling point of our solution, is that we don't discriminate or we don't differentiate the destination. In our case, the destination can be internet, it could be SaaS applications, it could be private applications, and so on and so forth. And whatever I spoke about till now, least privilege access, continuous threat prevention, continuous security inspection, is going to be applicable to any application that the user would be trying to access. Right? Now comes the most tricky part. How are we going to provide a connectivity, and how are we going to ensure that these options are completely flexible, right? Going back to the same statement of any user, from anywhere accessing any applications. This should have flexible connectivity options, and we are one of the very few SASE players in the market who is able to provide you multiple connectivity options depending upon what the user is trying to connect, right? If the end customer requires solution around a secure web gateway, right, which is in principle securing what you are trying to access over the internet, we have got options which is absolutely a proxy based controls or pack file based controls, right? If the users or the organization is looking for a private access kind of a solution, right? So we have a lightweight agent called the Global Protect agent, which can be used as a hook to the Prisma SASE cloud, and through that you are going to get complete protection in terms of while you access the private applications. And third option is that when there are headless systems or when there are servers and systems on which you cannot install the Global Protect agent or the proxy mode or the a pack file and so on and so forth, we also provide something called as a remote network, which is an site-to-site or an IPsec connection between the destination and the SASE cloud, and hereby you are going to get complete protection irrespective of where the communication is coming from, right? So if you are so in this discussion, whatever I have spoke till now only talks about a managed device or a controlled device. Right? If there are thoughts running in your mind that as to what is Palo Alto Networks doing for an unmanaged device or a BYOD device or a third party contracted device, right? So hold on to your thoughts. We have a complete session on that, and we are going to do an excellent demo which will cover only this aspect of providing secure access through an unmanaged device, which Ashish will be covering. Right? Now the second thing is, It's all good that we are providing least privilege access, we are providing continuous threat inspection, and so on and so forth. But how is this service delivered? Right? So this is where this is the deciding point on how good or how bad any SASE service is. Right? So this is how we are leveraging the power of hyperscalers, and we are providing a absolute 100% a cloud delivered service which is hosted on GCP and on AWS. Right? So if you see the sheer reach, right, we are present around 570 plus POPs spread across around 190 plus zones, and more importantly available around 62 regions around the world. Right? So irrespective of where you are situated, you are going to get uninterrupted services, and the biggest point here is that you are going to have all the security services, whatever we spoke till now, available on all these POP locations. Right? So I will not be going through all the points that mentioned on the screen, but the one thing which is extremely critical from a data protection or from a data privacy perspective is that any customer or any tenant on a Palo Alto's SASE cloud is going to be given a dedicated data plane, and they are going to be guaranteedly given a dedicated IP address. Right? So all the issues with regards to a noisy neighbor consuming more resources, or a noisy neighbor doing something bad on the internet, all those points are completely taken out, and everybody is going to have a dedicated tenant and a dedicated IP address for this service. Right? So wrapping it up with how we have evolved over a period of time. Right? So if I had to talk about SASE 1.0, SASE 1.0 was all about providing connectivity. Right? And the connectivity would either come from a remote machine, or it could come from a remote branch, and so on. Right? And since the pedigree of Palo Alto Network is all about security, even with our SASE 1.0, in addition to providing different networking options, we guaranteed that from a threat perspective, you are completely covered. Right? Then came the second phase of SASE, or an requirement, requirement enhancement phase, where in addition to providing networking services, right, we also started adding more and more capabilities to the same SASE platform. Right? So we added a proxy functionality or the secure web gateway part. Right? Customers wanted to do from a data privacy perspective, they wanted to secure data in motion and data at rest. Right? So this is where the CASB functionalities came in. Right? And advanced capabilities like remote browser isolation. Right? And from a private access perspective, something like an ZTNA connector, and so on and so forth. This started emerging as a part of SASE 2.0. Right? And while we speak, we recently launched SASE 3.0, which was more about enhancing the performance of the end user. Right? So that with all these services enabled, the user experience should not suffer from an application access perspective. And as I was saying in the past, in addition to providing access from a managed device, how do we provide access from an unmanaged device? This is the crux of SASE 3.0. Right? So this is how the platform has evolved, and this is being, we have a stamp from the third-party researchers as well as to how good the platform is, and in all the category, be it the SASE category, or an SD-WAN category, or an secure service edge category, all the third-party researchers have highly rated us, and in all these categories, Palo Alto Network is in the leaders quadrant. Right? So this is a testimony of how good the platform is and how well the platform is evolving. Right? So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Ashish, who will be taking us through the end of the session. Thank you, Ashish.
Thanks, Sai. So I've been having conversations with customers around SASE for the past year or so, right? And one of the pertinent questions that customers ask me about is, what is the advantage that I get when I switch to SASE? Right?
And usually when you speak to multiple vendors as well, right, usually the advantage that most people will talk about is consolidation, right? You're consolidating multiple consoles, multiple agents, etc. But that depends on the organization's life cycle as well, right? How and when they've implemented. But SASE touches one very important piece, that is a user accessing an application, right? And this is where we at Palo Alto, we aspire to do, better than what we were today, right? Today, if you look at almost any SASE solution, it's about providing an as-is state, but in a more consolidated way, right? You're taking all of your tools and consolidating them into the cloud. But what we aspire to do is, how can I make your application access faster? Because that is what is going to impact the user, right? And that's what we have launched as part of SASE 3.0. If you look at today, almost every user complains that, it's the application that is slow. I'm not able to do my transaction because the application is responding slow, right? And which is why I'm not able to work well. In fact, with applications shifting to the cloud, where in a SaaS service, you no longer even control the backend architecture of that, right? User traffic has to traverse over the internet and hit that particular SaaS application so that they can transact and work on it. More and more modern applications are making use of data lakes, large data lakes. As you feed in a lot of information into those applications, it takes a lot of time to retrieve based on context as well, right? And all of that hits the user. Where earlier static pages loaded in, at a click of a button, now it takes maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes of time to actually load the page. A lot of you will probably be from IT and you'll be familiar with a tool called ServiceNow as well, right? When you hit the dashboard, it takes a lot of time to load, right? Or even Salesforce for that example. And this is a common problem that we're seeing across customers. Now, if you look at if I break down that particular application access lifecycle, right, and look at where is the performance problem coming in from, usually we think of it from the network side, right? It could be the network. User is in a bad network, or maybe it's a service that I'm being part of, right? Maybe my proxy is slow, or maybe my access is slow. But actually, the bigger part of the latency comes in from the application itself. Like I said, our applications have evolved. We have consolidated from an application perspective as well. All of our data, which was in individual siloed databases, it has gotten together into a data lake. And whenever you access anything within the application, whenever you're trying to make a transaction within the application, it has to mine that data lake so that it is bringing back the context for you as a user, right? The same application for a manager would look different, present different type of data and different type of charts versus the same application for a user who has only a limited context, right? And that is where a majority of the latency comes in. You can see a lot of your newer modern age applications leveraging a similar principle, right? Wherein they use and hook dynamic content. How is dynamic content different from your traditional websites? So when you're actually going to the website, let's say, you open a dashboard in Salesforce for your reports about how many calls you've made or how many calls the leads have been generated, right? What actually happens in the backend is when you hit that page, there are multiple widgets on that same page. These widgets are actually querying APIs back to the database or the data lake and collecting data based on the authorization of the user. So it is dynamic in nature. It's not a static report that is being shown. It is shown based on the context that you are the user, this is your region, these are the reportees for you, and this is the report for you, right? That kind of content cannot be cached, right? Traditionally, how do we accelerate applications? We used to put in a CDN or maybe an accelerator in front and to cache those type of images, things like images or static content. But with dynamic applications, that is no longer the case, right? Because every time the content is changing. So your interactive content, right, which is typically what these applications are made of, that can't be cached. It can't be, served using the same type of thing for every user. It has to be continuously fetched again and again. Now, what have we done as an industry? We have tried to build, solve it as a network problem. I try to maybe add a network accelerator. I maybe add more POPs, right, where the users are. But this doesn't really help. What you're doing is you're bringing the network closer to the user, but the application is where it is, right? The bigger problem is the application fetching content. Now, let's take it a bit more real, more real-world example. Let's say it's Salesforce. When you subscribe to a Salesforce application for your organization, typically Salesforce has multiple data centers across the globe. They'll ask the organization, choose one data center where I'll keep your database or your data lake. This is where all the transactions for that organization flow in through, all the data view is there, right? The reason for this is so that, it can query the database dynamically or the data lake dynamically and present data. So an organization will choose, for example, where is the largest office. They'll choose that this is going to be my home for my instance. Let's say in this case, the organization was based out of the US, in California. They chose that my Salesforce instance will reside in California, okay? So when the users who are sitting in California, they'll not face any latency because they're the nearest to that instance. They are not traversing the entire region of internet and accessing that. But people spread out across the world, they'll have a big problem. Why? Because every API call that is made whenever a user goes on a page is actually traversing the entire inter-region internet and hitting the California instance of Salesforce for that particular company and then fetching the data, right? This means that page load times are going to be tremendously slow. So this is what we're looking at solving with app acceleration. With app acceleration, we are introducing a new way of optimizing applications, specifically dynamic applications, right? We are leveraging something we call as inline cloud context, which is basically going to predict the context for the user and the content for the user. What we're going to look at is building machine learning-based bots based on the user's typical behavior of accessing that application. These are contextual bots based on behavior of that user over a period of time and predicting that content that, okay, if I open Salesforce, this is the typical workflow for you, right? You go to opportunities, you maybe go to reports, you fetch the report, or you edit an opportunity, or you add a new lead. So that is predicting the content based on learning of the new user behavior. This keeps on learning, and it is unique to every individual user in your organization. This continuously learns and prefetches that content for him, right? Proactively computes that content. So even if there is a latency from a user perspective from a network, the content is prefetched and kept in a container so that can be delivered instantly to the user whenever he has good connected back to the platform, right? This way we are basically accelerating the application faster than the internet. So how does it really work? Or rather, how does it really look like, right? Rather than talking on slides, what I thought was, let me show you how it really would look like in a real world. On the left-hand side is a direct-to-internet Salesforce, right? Somebody accessing over internet. Right-hand side is a Prisma access. If you see on the right-hand side, the dashboard is already loaded in 4 seconds, or rather 4.79 seconds. On the left-hand side, it is still loading, right? Every one of these widgets is actually a report that is being fetched based on my context as a user, and then pulling in data for that. So you can see that with Prisma Access and app acceleration, we are actually loading the dashboard much faster than it was natively if I went over to the internet directly accessed. Let's look at another one, a very popular application. This is ServiceNow. There are two types of dashboards. Let's look at a light dashboard. Left-hand side is not accelerated, right-hand is accelerated. 2.70 seconds already loaded with Prisma Access. This is still loading. 7.67 seconds. Now let's look at the heavy dashboard. This is what typically your incident responders and your IT teams typically access. So let's load the heavy dashboard. On the right-hand side, the heavy dashboard is loaded in 2.74 seconds. This is still loading. And you'll see some activity on the top on the left-hand side as it fetches that content, right? It's running a query on the database and the data lake for ServiceNow. Running transaction is 17.1 seconds, and it should load now, right? So this is the power of app acceleration, where you can prefetch dynamic content which is unique to a user context within that application, prefetch it from the data lake, and then present it to the user, right? So if you have use cases, and I'm pretty sure wherever we've been talking to this about to our customers, there's been a lot of interest in terms of how can I leverage this to improve my user experience. Obviously, when you deliver an application which is business critical faster to the users, you're always going to get better marks from the users, right? And what does this mean for IT as well? We're able to actually show you what is the percentage of improvement that we brought onto the network, right? The improvement context in terms of how many applications we've accelerated, how much time we have saved for the user, right? How much time we have saved for the organization in total, because this improves productivity for the organization. You can see individually what all apps were accelerated, how many users were impacted because of that acceleration, and they got better results or better access opportunities, and this can be leveraged from a reporting perspective. You can also see that the console also shows you what would have been the pre-accelerated response time. If we had not accelerated it, it would have typically been 40 milliseconds for it to respond, whereas with acceleration it was less than 20 seconds, right? So this is a real life view in terms of how we can also show you that the acceleration is actually improving the user transaction time and performance for your users within the organization, right? So that was more around the application access piece. Now let's talk about the other side of the house, right? So I spoke about how do I bring in unmanaged devices into the organization, and this has been a big conversation that we have had with a lot of customers, saying that while I am deploying a consolidated platform, I have a lot of third-party resources that work for me. Especially in the financial services industry, we have a lot of contractors working on IT, on as a field sales force, or data verification, etc., that might need access to certain applications. And what do we typically do for them? What we do is we roll out I would say, architectures or rather solutions that try to control the data that they have access to, right? We would deploy a VDI, maybe we roll out our own laptop, right? And not only does this add cost, but it also is a big upkeep for the IT organization, right? You have to ensure that the patching is maintained for somebody who's not even on your payroll. You have to ensure that they're in compliance, they have to get the right amount of security patches, and they are not the cause of lateral movement of malware or ransomware within the organization, right? The ransomware doesn't originate from them. And this is a typical pertinent question that a lot of customers ask, right? I have third-party users. I need to enable them to access my applications securely, right? And it needs to be better in terms of user experience. I don't need to have a very slow-loading desktop. That's not going to cut it. Similarly, you have organizations who are saying my executives want to work with their own devices, right? I don't want to kind of restrict that because today all of my apps are going to SaaS anyways. Finally, there are other use cases as well. Secure access to privileged services, or it could be access to generative AI as well, right? A lot of work can be done with generative AI for certain job functions, but we are restricting them because it's a security risk. So how do I safely enable those kind of use cases with this? And that is why we brought in a very radical way of access for our customers. We call this a Prisma Access browser. This is a corporate browser based on the Chromium platform, right? The whole idea being that rather than enforcing security at different levels at the network, enforce security right at the edge. So this particular enterprise browser enforces data controls and security controls at the user edge and does not require admin access. The biggest problem that most customers tell me is when we talk of third-party or unmanaged devices, I cannot install an agent because it requires admin rights. The user probably won't have that. This doesn't require that. This is a Chromium-based browser, similar to a Google Chrome, right? But with all the security privileges controlled by your organization. So you control what happens within the browser, what access controls happen on it, right? Access to any application which is web-based. It could be a web-based application locally. It could be a SaaS-based app, or it could be a private application hosted in your own data center as well, right? Which is not publicly exposed over the internet. All of those can be delivered securely using the browser platform, and it's available across multiple operating system platforms as well. Now, what are the three capabilities of this? One is it builds a secure, isolated environment, right? Local isolation right on the system. Nothing is exchanged between the system and the browser, right? It acts like a bubble. So all of the assets like passwords, history, etc., those can be isolated in that particular bubble and safely flushed away once the session closes. The second is data controls, and this is very, very important, right? People are asking, how do I control data on a device that I don't even own? And that is what we look at solving with the Prisma Access browser. Finally, better user experience in terms of they don't have to access or run on hoops to access a VDI and then try to access something or manage two different laptops, one their own and a third-party laptop, right? So how does this exactly work, right? And what I thought was, you've been through multiple slides so far since the morning. Better than slides, what I'll do is show a live demo. Unfortunately, what happened was I'll have to go at the back because the HDMI was not connecting. So I'll go at the back and we'll run through a live demo of the solution. I need the access. It's on? Yeah, okay. Let's look at a live demo of the solution. The first thing that the browser does, right, and this can be deployed on any system without admin rights, is it looks at a posture of the machine. So if you look at this particular browser, let's say I may be a third-party contractor for DSCI. What it's looking at is certain parameters on the device which can be controlled by the organization. Does this device have a minimum security status, right, or minimum security structure? I can look at things like, does it have active endpoint protection? Does it have file system encryption turned on, etc.? And this all can be tagged to a particular device as well. So for example, I'm collecting the serial numbers. I can actually say that only a third-party contractor coming in from this specific device is allowed, not from any device that they want, right? I can choose to block access, or I can also say that I want to give some differential access. If I'm missing certain pieces of compliance, I might give him some differential access that minimum applications are allowed. In this case, I've purposely said that some certain of my compliances don't match. Like you can see, this is a Mac laptop, but we have said that this is Dell Nano. So let's proceed. I can also do an additional form of multi-factor authentication as well, apart from what your IDP does, right? So I can enforce a PIN or a Touch ID or Windows Hello based authentication in addition, so that I can verify the user. So let me just log in. So this is how the browser looks like for the user, right? So when he first logs into the system, they are actually presented with a customized dashboard based on the organization that assigned them the browser, right? In this case, I'm a contractor for DSI. I have the customization of DSI with the application shortcuts that are relevant to my role and my job profile, right? So for example, these are some applications that are relevant to me and that have been assigned to me by DSI, and this is what I can work on. Now let's look at some of the capabilities as we walk through. So let's say I'm part of a particular contractor that has access to maybe certain sensitive data, and I'm supposed to call customers for credit card, upselling credit card services, right? So I've been given access to reports which has credit card numbers. Now the bigger problem is if I give them access to credit card numbers, it could be misused, right? So how do I enable business, but also ensure that data is controlled? So this is, if you can see here, one of the capabilities around data protection can be seen, right? First is this particular page within the application for me is very sensitive, which is why what I've done is I've ensured that if anybody takes a photo, you can see a watermark on the screen. This watermark is customized based on the organization which is delivering this application to me. The username, you can see my username out there, and a timestamp, so that if this particular screenshot leaks, it can be quickly identified who leaked the original screenshot, right? The second piece that you see here is the data, right? You can see here that the credit card number is masked. It is not showing the entire credit card number. If you go to the actual app, again, I've used a test application on the internet just to show you, but if you go to the actual application, you will actually see the credit card number. But in the browser, what we are doing is we're securely masking the credit card number and only showing the specific characters that are needed for business. You can choose to entirely mask the credit card number, or you could choose to say, a few digit characters are remaining. And this can be done on any data pattern. It could be an Aadhaar card, it could be a PAN card, or anything something very specific to your organization, right? Now for me, even the social security number, which is in the second column, is also protected, but I needed to see it for business purposes, right? But what we can do is we can do some additional data controls on that I don't misuse this particular data. So let's look at, for example, if I try to copy it and paste it outside this secure browser, you'll see that there's a restriction out there. I cannot paste this outside this particular browser, right? It says that pasting his data is not allowed. Let's try to do it within the browser as well. Let me just bring in normal risky website, right? Now if you look at here on the left hand side, this dialog is customized. So this kind of warns the user what is happening on this page. Okay, this is a deterrence mechanism. So you can actually tell or inform the user, these are the prohibited activities on this particular page, right? And you should not be performing any of these activities. So this informs the user in a coaching perspective that these are the valid activities and these are invalid activities. But it also acts like a deterrence mechanism to the user to tell him that these are bad activities and you're being monitored. So now let's look at trying to paste that same data out here. It will say that pasting data is not allowed. And you can see that the end user coaching is so granular, you can actually see a rich notification to the user saying that this is a prohibited activity, right? And you're being monitored out this. Now, what if there is a particular application which is a business application and I really need to copy it. Maybe it's a reporting application where I need to actually paste the social security number. It's an internal application, right? So this is an internal application for me, and I really need to be able to paste the content here. So let's take another content and try to paste it here. So in this application, I'm able to paste it because this is a business application. I've specifically said that this is a business application where the clipboard content should be allowed because it speeds up the productivity for the user. But if I try to paste the content again on this illegitimate website for me, it will again say that the pasting is not allowed, right? So I can granularly control clipboard access. I don't have to deny it globally. I just say that this is very specific business application where I want to control the clipboard for. Now, in addition to this, we also have something called as, if user is a bit smarter, right, he'll not do a copy paste. He'll try to type it out, right? So let's look at if I type this second piece of information. This particular functionality is called type guard, right? So this basically looks at sensitive data as it's being typed within any prompt within that particular browser, right, or within the application. So if there's a sensitive data that is detected, we can automatically mask it and remove it from that particular text box, right? So this ensures that even if the user has some misintentions, we can control that data even if though he's not controlling by the clipboard. This is also very useful if you think of leveraging it from a generative AI perspective as well. You want to allow people to use generative AI like ChatGPT or some similar applications, but you also want to ensure that users don't use this application to send in sensitive information to the generative AI app. So we can control that. Unfortunately, I think it's not working on this internet. Maybe we'll skip this and we'll just move on with the demo. Now let's look at some other pieces, right? I might want to give research access to certain pages or certain applications or access, right? I don't just want them to view. Don't interact with that page, don't type anything on that page. So I can make the page read-only. So in this case, I'm not able to type it. It says that this is a read-only page. I'm not able to configure it. It's as per DSA policy. What if I take a screenshot of this page? So let me try and take a screenshot. I can actually control, and you can see here at the bottom, that I've controlled screenshot access on this particular sensitive page. So while the user is able to view it, he's not able to take a screenshot or a screen recording of this page. What happens if I maybe use a screen sharing application? Let's look at that. So let's create a new meeting. And the moment I shared the screen, you can see here the page itself became dark, right? So I can actually control access to sensitive applications over sharing applications like Teams or Zoom or chat, right? Where users who have access to the sensitive application cannot share it and share that over a screen sharing app. If I move to any of the other applications which are not protected, you can see and view them, right? But I've only specifically said that this is the application that I want to control from being screen shared. And we can see that as part of the policy here. You see here that only secure screenshots allowed. You're not allowed to take or do screen recording on this particular app. The moment I stop the share, the page becomes viewable again, right? So very granular control in terms of data control on this particular page. Now, during the life cycle of the usage, right, what would also happen is you might restrict certain actions. You might say, I'm blocking access to certain applications, or I'm blocking access to certain specific data actions like download or upload. But user might need it for a specific business purpose. So in this case, I'm just doing a very simple thing like accessing YouTube. This says that the website is restricted. I can actually go in here and do a request for permission. So what will happen here is it sends a request to the administrator, and the administrator can choose to approve or deny it based on a time-bound perspective, right? So rather than providing him continuous access to that application, I can say that for a specific time limit, you're only allowed to access the application. Let's look at how it really looks like from an admin perspective as well. Let me just open the My admin console. So from an administrator perspective, I'll actually see a request coming in onto the management console saying, this is a pending request for the user. Let me just So you can see Ashish Tarke he has access YouTube at this particular date, and I can choose to reply it. I can say that I can approve it for a specific time. I can choose to approve it only once or for a particular destination of time. I'll say approve, or I can just decline the request and give him a response. Now, without changing any rule, right? I've not changed the policy. I've just accepted an approval request. Without changing any rule, I can actually grant access to the user. You can see here that from a user perspective, I see that permission request has been approved. I go back to the site and it says permission request approved. You can just go ahead and continue, right? So I can give time-bound access to specific sensitive actions. I can give time-bound access to applications as well using this particular capability, right? Now, the final piece is, what about data, right? Now, there might be a requirement that I need to be able to view files or data which is present on pages, right? But I want to do it in a secure manner. I should not be able to exfiltrate that data out of this particular system. And that's what we are going to look at, right? So this is a file that I've downloaded that is being viewed on this particular application. Let me try and download that on the machine. The moment I try to do that, you will see that the extension changes. What we are doing is we are doing inline encryption of that particular file, right? You can choose that for certain sensitive applications, any data that is exported is encrypted, which means that that data cannot be shared out of that system and is only viewable in the browser. Let's have a look. So I've shared this, saved this particular file on the system, and let me go into the folder where it is. Try to open it, and my typical application within Mac is preview. See, the preview is not highlighted, right? I cannot open it in preview. I can play around with the extension, etc., and it's still not open. It's encrypted. But I can only open it within the browser, right? So this ensures that this stays within this particular bubble. Who can open it? Only the user who has downloaded on that very specific system, they can only open it and access this particular file. You can also choose to say that this encrypted file can only be sent using a specific business application. Any other application, the upload is denied. So you can be very, very particular on what type of data controls to be applied for sensitive files out here, right? So finally, you probably be asking yourself right now, right? This is all nice and good, but how do I restrict the user to ensure that they only access my application using this browser? I think that's a common question that's probably running in your mind, right? How do I ensure that any application which is exposed to internet, for example, shouldn't be accessed outside of this? So let's try and access my Outlook. So I'm accessing Office 65, which is publicly available. Now, even though I have the right credentials, and you can see here that my sign-in was successful, even though I have the right credentials, it says that I am signing in from a browser that is not permitted, right? So this is a normal Chrome browser where I tried to log in. It did not permit me to access that particular application. But if I go into my Prisma Access browser and try to access the same app with the same credentials, Ajay. Unfortunately, that's the problem with security. Put in the access code, and I should be able to access the application now. Right? So on the same system, with the same credentials, I'm able to access the application only within the secure browser and not using a Chrome application or a normal Chrome browser, right? That way I can ensure that if I'm rolling this application out to any third-party users, they only are able to access this particular application only in the secure container where I deploy my data protection policies, right? So I hope this is a very short demo, but if you have certain use cases that you feel are relevant for this, please do discuss us. The whole Palo Alto team is out here. So with this, I'll switch back to the slides. Second. And so this is why what we are looking at is making Prisma SASE as the onboarding platform for your entire network, right? With the capabilities that we introduced in the SASE 3.0, we are making sure that both managed and unmanaged devices are basically the same level of citizens in your environment. We can leverage the same SASE platform, the same consolidated management console, and delivery mechanisms to ensure that the users have access, any kind of user have access to any application from any device, right? So with that, I think I'll close it off. Sai, please take over the quiz.
Does Palo Alto network used to prevent targeted patient zero attacks? So I see a gentleman there who raised his hand. What's your answer?
Precision AI first.
Let's see. There you go. That's the right answer. I didn't get a name, sir. Mr. Deepen has answered it correctly, and he gets a gift. Harsh, can you? Applause, please. In spite of having excellent food, in spite of elections, he was attentive. Thank you so much. There comes the next question. SASE 3.0 constitutes of which two key technologies? I could see a hand going up there at the last.
App acceleration and Prisma Access browser.
Fantastic. So your name?
Rajesh.
Thanks, Rajesh. Applauses, please. So the third question. App acceleration optimizes which apps? I could see a hand going here. Yes, please.
Dynamic SASE applications.
Dynamic SaaS applications? Oh yeah, that's the right answer. Claps for him, please. Congratulations. And the last question. What are the three unique capabilities of the Prisma Access browser? I can see a hand being raised there.
Secure environment, last mile data control, and user first workspace.
Bingo, there you go. Fantastic. So that's it from all of us. So here we end this session, and thank you so much for patiently hearing to us. And if you have any questions, we are just outside the booth, at the booth. And if you have any specific queries, if you have any specific use cases, we can discuss that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed the session. And please do make the best use of it. They're all around if you want, in case you want to interact with them. Okay.